The FCC wants to ban hotspots too. Linux is currently experiencing a fire. Kids know how to bypass age verifications, which duh. And OpenAI creates stronger account security. What's up, s'mores? I'm Shannon Morse, and welcome back to Snubs on Security, aka SOS, the show where I spill the tea and I shared my caffeinated opinions on all things cybersecurity and hacking. This episode is brought to you by Yubico. Upgrade the security of your accounts with a phishing-resistant YubiKey and protect your most crucial profiles. More on Yubico in a bit, but let's go ahead and get started with Linux. All right, Linux admins are having a kind of a bad month. Researchers disclosed a Linux vulnerability, which is called copy fail, that can let attackers gain root access on a massive amount of Linux systems released over the last several years. And yes, according to CISA, this vulnerability is already being actively exploited in the wild. Now, if you're not a PC nerd, root basically means full administrator access. Having root access means that you have complete control over the system. So if an attacker gains root privileges, they can install malware, they can create persistence mechanisms, they could steal data, modify services, or pivot deeper into a network. And apparently this bug is super easy to exploit. Researchers released a POC, a proof of concept exploit written in Python that is reportedly only about 700 bytes long, which is fairly tiny. But despite how small it is, researchers say that it works fairly reliably across major Linux distros, including Ubuntu, Red Hat, SUSE, Amazon Linux, and others. Now, luckily, attackers do still need some kind of foothold first. That could be a compromised user account, malware execution, SSH access, a malicious CI/CD job, or a compromised Docker container. But once an attacker gets any level of local access, the vulnerability could potentially escalate privileges straight to root. And that is why cloud infrastructure folks are getting super worried about this. So modern infrastructure runs heavily on Linux containers like Kubernetes, clusters, Docker environments, cloud workloads. There's build servers, hosting infrastructure. It's Linux all the way down, all those different layers. Now, attackers love chaining vulnerabilities together, so a bug like this one could turn a relatively small compromise into a complete host takeover. So imagine an attacker compromises a low privilege container running on a server. Normally, that container is supposed to be isolated, but with a privilege escalation vulnerability like copy fail, the attacker could be able to break out of that restricted environment and gain root access on the underlying host itself. That's the bad part. So according to the researchers, the exploit manipulates Linux's page cache in memory instead of directly modifying the files on the disk. That means some traditional security and integrity monitoring tools might not immediately notice that anything is wrong. That's deeply unsettling from a defensive standpoint because a lot of security tooling still heavily relies on detecting changes to files actually on the disk. And just a quick little note here, researchers did reportedly use AI-assisted tooling during the vulnerability discovery process. AI-assisted code analysis tools are starting to make vulnerability discovery faster. Defenders can use those tools to discover those vulnerabilities faster and patch them sooner, but attackers can also use similar tools to identify weaknesses at a much larger scale. So we might be entering this era where really critical vulnerabilities are discovered super fast and they're used far faster than organizations are capable of responding, which is also forcing organizations to depend or rely on AI tools to find them, which feels to me like a catch-22. Okay, so if you run any kind of Linux servers, make sure you patch immediately. If you manage Kubernetes or Docker infrastructure, prioritize that right now. If you run cloud workloads, check kernel versions, vendor advisories as soon as possible, just to make sure that you're good to go. Now, to continue this Linux conversation, we have another story. We have another major Linux privilege escalation bug right after the whole copy fail vulnerability. Now, this new one is called Dirty Frag, and researchers say that Dirty Frag allows local attackers to gain root privileges, so again, same kind of issue, on most major Linux distributions using a publicly available proof of concept exploit. So just like copy fail, this one is especially nasty because it's reportedly very reliable. Researchers say the exploit abuses uses deterministic logic flaws in the Linux kernel's networking and memory systems. So TLDR, that means that if the vulnerable code path exists, the exploit tends to work. So according to researchers, Dirty Frag chains together two separate Linux kernel vulnerabilities involving, I don't know how to say these out loud, but XFRM-ESP and the RXRPC networking subsystems. That's what's reported on. So together, they allow attackers to modify protected data inside the Linux page cache and escalate those privileges to root. So this is in the same family of bugs as Dirty Pipe and Copy Fail, so it really seems like there's this entire vulnerability family, or this class, since they all involve the kernel somehow. The researchers say that Dirty Frag affects major Linux distros, so that also includes Ubuntu, Fedora, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Alma Linux, CentOS, Stream, OpenSUSE, other ones. To make matters worse, this vulnerability reportedly became public before patches were fully ready, which is super great for us. So according to multiple reports, the disclosure embargo was broken early by a third party, which forced the researchers to publish details and proof of concept exploit code before Linux vendors had completed patches. So same as Copy Fail, attackers need to have some sort of localized access first. Also like Copy Fail, Dirty Frag manipulates the data in the memory through the Linux page cache, which can make detection a lot harder because the underlying files on disk may appear unchanged. So patches weren't available immediately, and there are some temporary mitigations. I'll put links down below so that you can read up further on this. Now, this week's episode is sponsored by Yubico, and I actually have an interesting piece of news about a new partnership. So Yubico and OpenAI are in the news this month with a partnership to protect your accounts. So OpenAI just announced a new advanced account security system for their ChatGPT and Codex accounts, and from a security perspective, that's going to be a positive move. The main reasons I wanted to talk about this are because, one, AI accounts are becoming high-value targets for attacks, and two, they are partnering with Yubico, and I love Yubico, which bring phishing-resistant options at a very incredible price point in this case. So this is specifically about account security, since people are storing data in these systems like source code, business strategies, research, legal drafts, personal information, sensitive work documents, just to name a few. So if an attacker somehow gains access to an OpenAI account, that can expose a lot of sensitive information. So OpenAI rolled out this new optional security mode, it is optional, which is designed for high-risk users like journalists, researchers, political dissidents, cybersecurity professionals, pretty much anybody who wants stronger protections. The new system heavily supports passkeys and hardware security keys, including this partnership with Yubico to offer customized YubiKey bundles for OpenAI users. So the hardware key offers phishing resistance because while passwords can be stolen and text messages can obviously be intercepted, and phishing sites can trick users into handing over 6-digit codes, using a properly implemented hardware key like one of these YubiKeys, which checks the domain and a cryptographic challenge before allowing the authentication to happen, fundamentally protects your account. So even if you click on like a fake login page, the key will refuse to authenticate to that attacker's fake website. So OpenAI partnered with Yubico to give users a very sweet deal with any OpenAI account, including the free accounts. You will now have access to a custom pair of YubiKeys, these ones right here, which can be used to protect not only your OpenAI account, but also other accounts that also support the FIDO protocol. Now, these custom keys are only for FIDO supported sites. The OTP protocol is disabled on these specific keys, but they are available for a very, very generous price of $68 for 2 of them. And as somebody who has been preaching about hardware keys for years, I think that's an amazing deal that you should jump on if you have been considering them. Now, I know a lot of people in my audience already have purchased their own YubiKeys, and if you already have YubiKeys, you can absolutely use those with your OpenAI accounts as well. You do not need to buy new ones if you have already invested in your own pair of keys. I know some folks in my audience are using AI tools, so if you want to see a full tutorial on turning on and using OpenAI's advanced account security, I'll be happy to create an account so that I can show you how to set it up. Just an FYI though, just know this implementation is going pretty hard. So once users enable advanced account security, traditional password logins are disabled entirely. Email and SMS account recovery is also disabled. Instead, account recovery relies on backup security keys, passkeys, or recovery codes, which is why they're offering you this sweet deal where you can get 2 of them for $68. So that's important because account recovery cannot rely on customer service, which protects against the potential of social engineering. Attackers just love targeting support desks, email resets, SIM swapping, because it's often going to be easier than breaking the actual authentication itself. That is definitely the correct move for high-risk accounts, but the trade-off is you cannot depend on those fallback recovery methods if you do lose your hardware keys, which is why they are offering that deal for the 2 keys. So here's a benefit as well. Advanced account security disables conversations from being used for model training, which is great. So regardless of whether you personally use AI tools or not, I think giving users clearer privacy controls is definitely a good thing. Now, phishing attacks are still one of the biggest threats online, and stolen session tokens or compromised accounts can expose huge amounts of sensitive information. Keep in mind that you should still have a security approach that includes proper online security hygiene, and I am currently working on a whole series on my channel to discuss all the facets of this. We do see a lot of enterprise level hardware security access, so I really appreciate that we are seeing this access at a consumer level as well, for even the free accounts. And I love seeing how YubiKeys are being implemented in such an accessible way. Now, remember when I told y'all about how the US government just put practically every single router manufactured overseas on a ban list? So now that ban also includes portable hotspots and 5G home internet devices. Yay! I think, okay, I'm gonna take a sip of my tea. Y'all know how I feel about this ongoing story. So the FCC expanded their router restrictions to now include portable MiFi hotspots, LTE and 5G home internet gateways, and residential consumer networking equipment. It was expanded through the FAQ language, not some kind of public announcement, and the argument made is these devices present national security and supply chain risks. So if you use one of those little MiFi hotspots while traveling, you work remotely with LTE backup internet, or you use something like a T-Mobile or Verizon 5G home internet, then it could eventually affect future devices that you buy. I mean, heck, this already affected me personally. I was looking to buy a travel router from a pretty popular brand, and they have these pre-orders open for a new Wi-Fi 7 model, but they aren't shipping them to the US because that new one did not yet have the FCC certification. Now, it's normal to open pre-orders while awaiting FCC certification for a device because the cert takes a ridiculously long time. But because of all of this, now I cannot get one shipped here. Critics have pointed out that the ban does not affect existing vulnerable routers, just future products, and hacks often happen because routers stop getting timely security patches or users just never patch them. Consumer routers are definitely a weak link in cybersecurity due to never updating the firmware, companies abandoning those updates after a few years, and I know a lot of consumers myself personally that never update those default passwords that come with their routers, which is pretty scary, but this policy is not removing those existing vulnerable routers. Oh no, those ones are completely fine. And banning routers here does not fix any of these problems. Routers are still gonna have problems whether they are manufactured here or they're manufactured overseas. This creates less consumer competition, it creates higher prices. I'm forecasting that it's going to create higher prices and slower updates. The focus should be on mandatory update timelines. It should be on security labeling. It should be on better default configs, like requiring you to change the password when you first set up your Wi-Fi so that your admin account is not like admin123. I mean, geez, it's not that hard. Automatic patches and more transparency around support cycles. And decreasing our access to portable hotspots is pretty sus, because don't you want high-profile targets, which are traveling all the time, to have internet access in a protected way? When the only options are public Wi-Fi, why ban devices that can be configured with our own VPNs and portals? That seems very counterintuitive. I mean, sure, people have commented just build your own, and yes, I have done my own builds, just in case you didn't know, on shows like Hack5 and Tech Thing, and you can still find those videos on YouTube. But do you really expect normal consumers to do that? It's going to be very telling when routers with a Made in the USA label come along, and lo and behold, they have the exact same vulnerabilities that every other router also has. Now, if you have good gear already, just make sure that you can still update your networking devices. If your gear is starting to get kind of old and showing its age, you should probably consider upgrades before the prices start skyrocketing. And if you have the ability to build your own with something like OPN Sense or PF Sense or OpenWRT, then you're good. And maybe you'll do a tutorial on that, because it's always really fun to build your own devices. Okay, let's move on to a TLDR story. So I just wanted to mention this since it's relevant to a previous story that I had also shared. Remember that new EU age verification tool? Yeah, so apparently a kid drew a fake mustache on his face and he tricked the age verification into thinking that he was a full-grown adult. Lil bro is gonna grow up and be a red teamer. I mean, that's so cool. That's hilarious. So Meta just posted a press release about how it's revamping its age verification system after cases where kids were bypassing the age checks with very low-tech tricks like drawing or wearing fake mustaches. So Meta's response is to expand the AI-powered tool across Instagram and Facebook to look at stuff like bios, comments, posts, birthday references, school year clues, visual clues in photos and videos like height and bone structure. Now, Meta says this is not facial recognition, okay, because it is not trying to identify a specific person. It's trying to estimate a general age range. But that's still pretty freaking creepy, because this means the platform may still be analyzing your photos and videos, not just for what you posted, but for what your body, your face, your surroundings, your caption, and your behavior might reveal about you. And I can be the first to say, my behavior is a little childish sometimes. I color my hair and I sit in a room full of Sailor Moon vintage toys. Like, how are they going to know that I'm actually middle-aged? And yes, protecting kids online is very important. I don't think most people disagree with that, but the problem is that age verification is really hard to do well without creating another surveillance layer. This also creates misclassifications, biometric concerns, and it may negatively affect people who have disabilities. Now, parents, do not rely on age gates alone. Use parental controls, talk to your kids, check privacy settings, teach them why certain platforms do have these age limits in the first place. And platforms, please, can we stop pretending that AI is gonna fix it? Show your error rates, explain what data is scanned, be transparent. How long is it stored? Whether humans are reviewing it? How can users appeal mistakes? Because there are going to be mistakes. And lawmakers, please do not build a surveillance machine because you wanted a headline-friendly child safety bill, okay? Alright, thank you so much for watching. Thank you again to Yubico for sponsoring this video. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for ongoing security and privacy news and tutorials as well. I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.